Hello, my name is Carly Coggins, and I am here to do my case presentation today for organizational behavior management. And I chose the first conflict issue, which was choosing your battles. And so I'm here to address the questions that were asked and to address other concerns within choosing your battles. So first, I'm going to define what the phrase choose your battles means. So choose your battles means that to be selective of the problems, arguments, and confrontations that you get involved in. Instead of fighting every problem, you save your time only for the things that matter. This means fighting the most important battles and letting go of the rest. On to the first question. How would you ensure sufficient discussion of contentious issues in a work group? How can managers bring unspoken conflicts into the open without making them worse? To answer the first part of this question, I'm going to go ahead and talk about two separate things that I personally have experienced and believe are important factors within group conflict. So whenever you are putting a group together, you're going to have avoidable conflict and unavoidable conflict, or unavoidable factors and avoidable factors. So examples of avoidable factors would be the people that you're selecting for the group. So whenever you're putting a group together to have a common goal, you're trying to get something achieved, you want to make sure that you're choosing people who work well in a team together. Their personality types typically are more outgoing and more personable. I personally don't think that introverts work very well in these types of groups. People that like to work on their own typically could cause unnecessary conflict just because maybe they don't want to be involved in the group meetings. They don't want to be involved in certain pieces that all members of the group need to be involved in. So this is an avoidable factor when a manager is putting together a team of individuals to achieve one single collective goal. He or she needs to make sure that they're choosing people that they think are going to perform the best in their role. That kind of clears those first two bullet points there. And also, we can avoid tons of conflict if we just make sure that everyone is aware on what the end goal is. If we have two individuals over here who think the end goal is A, B, or C, and then everybody else is on end goal A, that can cause some confusion and unnecessary conflict within the project or the goal in itself. As for the unavoidable conflict, we know that there are going to be several things in group work that you just can't avoid, and they will need to be brought to light, and the manager will have to choose on how they want to pursue and handle the situation. So typically you'll have a couple people in a group who want to be delegated the same duty. This could cause issues between those two individuals or animosity between whoever the manager chooses to perform one duty. That is something that will probably have to be addressed in a group setting more than other conflicts. Also, different ideas within the group will be presented, and so the manager will have to listen to the group as a whole and make decisions based on the better benefit of everyone that it will affect. So this could also cause issues between the team members or the manager and a team member in themselves. So how would you ensure sufficient discussion of contentious issues in a work group? So compromising is key. Some of those unavoidable factors, those are what I'm going to kind of harp on here because we need to speak about those since they probably are going to come up. You're going to have different individuals who have opinions and have different beliefs on the way that things should be done. So everybody needs to be on the common goal that we have to do what's best for the team and what's best for the company or those who it's going to affect. So compromising is key. Not just one person can have their way. Rarely will you find a team that can agree solidly on one idea unless it's just something that's really clear. It's a black or white disagreement. There's no gray area there. So compromising is key. And as the leader of the group, that leader needs to make sure that the individuals know that their idea is heard when presented. And if it isn't chosen, explain why personally and how the decision that they chose better benefits the group in its entirety. The leader should also directly communicate the issue to those it concerns using constructive criticism. Conflict and confrontation doesn't always have to be negative. The way that individuals grow and the way they become better at their positions and can grow in their professional life and personal life is by constructive criticism. If a manager sees an area where an individual can grow, it's his or her duty to address that. That way the individual can therefore gain more experience, more knowledge, more self-awareness of what's going on to improve themselves in the future. As the leader, you also need to remind the team of the end goal and the reason that they were collectively chosen. I think this is a great encouragement factor as well within teamwork, because whenever you choose specific individuals to participate in a project, you want to make sure that they know why they were chosen. I mean, typically it's because you work well in the group setting. You're some of the best of the best. We know you guys would get this done. That's a huge encouragement factor to have as a team. So if their team's ever feeling discouraged or unsure why they were chosen, that's always a great reminder is, hey, I chose you for this reason because I knew you would get it done. I know you would work well as a team, and I know I could rely on you. So that's a great factor as well. How can managers bring unspoken conflicts into the open without making them worse? Like I said, confrontation is not always negative. Conversations sometimes have to happen to avoid future conflict and to address issues that are happening currently. So make sure that they know you have good intentions by bringing this to the surface in order to find out the truth regarding the unspoken issue. Whenever you make it clear what your intentions were to bring up this issue and that you were just trying to kind of clear the air and have that one-on-one, all right, let's work this out now to prevent future conflict, I feel like both individuals would have tons of respect for the other person, because you would rather address it now if you believe it's going to affect you in the future than continuing to wait for it to actually get worse and then have to address it in a not so pleasant manner. Facing the issue head on in the present can avoid the spread or growing frustration of the problem as well. So if this is the first time something's happened, but then it happens again in the future, but the first time it was never addressed, there can be more frustration the second time, because then you're like, I should have addressed it then. I wish we would have talked about this then to avoid what's going on in the future. If the issue is unspoken, quote unquote, it is best to start the conversation and see if the individual will be forthcoming with the issue. Typically, if you can sense that there's something not right or that someone has a problem with something as a manager or leader perspective, you need to have that conversation, like how are you doing? How do you feel about this project? Those open-ended questions can lead individuals to express their concerns or maybe their frustrations. And as a leader or manager, you can discuss those and make sure that you and that individual become clear and everything is obvious on what your intentions are within the project and within your position. On to question 2. How can negotiators utilize conflict management strategies to their advantage so that differences in interest lead not to dysfunctional conflicts, but rather to positive, integrative solutions? So actively listening is a huge part of a negotiator's job. They want to make sure that both parties are heard, but also they're listening for those key factors that are going to give them hints as to what they should introduce next to diffuse the situation. Also identifying common interests and goals. This is a huge factor whenever you're experiencing two parties that have, or multiple parties that have several differences. What do they have in common? What can we bring to light that shows, you're not that much different than the other person. You do have this in common. That also has been proven to help many negotiators. That's what they basically try to do, is find the common ground and get the situation as resolved or as neutral as they possibly can. You also, as a negotiator, want to provide clear and effective communication. Being clear and effective within the way you communicate with both parties, not beating around the bush, going straight forward with the point of why you're there, why we are all here, and what the end goal is, whatever that be. By putting that on the table, both parties know exactly why they're here. The intention is very clear. And in situations like this, you also want to look at the positives. Not everything has to be negative. In some situations where it feels like there's nothing going right, there is. You have to find that as a negotiator, that's an important role in their job, is to find what is going on between these two that is going in the right direction and to build off of that. Question 2 continued, how can negotiators utilize conflict management strategies to their advantage so that differences in interests lead not to dysfunctional conflicts, but rather to positive integrative solutions? That's actually just a continuation of the question above. You also want to keep your conversations professional instead of personal, because whenever the conversations go into the personal realm, you're going to get more emotion. Professional keeps it at the facts that we know, the things that are truly going on without emotion. Typically, morals and ethics are there, but whenever you make things personal, there is more room for conflict. You also want to focus more on the similarities instead of the differences, like I said on the last slide. That is a huge point. I put that on there again because I really do believe that that is how negotiators utilize these strategies to diffuse situations, to find that common ground, is to use the similarities that are occurring. The final question is, can you think of situations in your own life in which silence has worsened a conflict between parties? What might have been done differently to ensure that open-ended communication facilitated collaboration instead? Personally, I have several friends who we all like to get together. This is actually the most recent situation that has occurred where I've experienced this. We had a little miscommunication on who was coming to a Friendsgiving, a get together at one of our other friends' house. And that miscommunication there kind of just slid under the table. I had no idea that the other party was upset, and they had no idea that I actually did not intentionally invite the party. They had just, nobody had informed me that he wasn't already coming. So time goes on. I sensed that there was a little bit of frustration. I asked him about it in person to see if we could address the issue if there was one, and he said there wasn't. So we move on. About a week later, same thing happens. But this time I received a text message expressing the frustration within the situation. And I do understand from the other side how it can be frustrating having another party at your house without you expecting them. However, also at the same point in time, if it is not known that that party is not wanted there, it's kind of hard to know when not to bring them. And so, especially in a friend group that's as close as mine, that's a recent conflict that I've experienced. And what would I have done differently to ensure more open-ended communication? I feel as though what I've learned from this is to always be intentional. Always make sure that it is clear who's going, who's not. The plans, venue, all those things need to be clear, especially for bigger events. Also, confrontation is not always negative. From this situation, we've learned and we've grown, and our communication has, we discussed kind of the next bullet point too, that I would prefer these conversations to be face-to-face. Text messages and emails can be taken the wrong way sometimes. You can never understand a person's tone of voice or their intentions from that tone through a text message or through any written form of communication. So that's what we also learned there. And I think my friend is also on the same page now that that's really how I would like to resolve issues from now on, because I had no idea there was an issue, because I tried to ask him face to face earlier in time and it was never addressed. And then also I learned from this, some disagreements can't be avoided or can be avoided and others can't. Sometimes you're going to have individuals who don't like somebody else. And at the end of the day, that's just a part of life. And it's a part of life that you have to overcome and solve as you go. It's never going to be the perfect solution. There's never a perfect solution to any problem that's just like, okay, this fits here, nothing else works. There's always multiple solutions to a problem, and you never know which one's going to be chosen. So in conclusion on my presentation, what I learned from choosing your battles, sometimes we can do our best to avoid small conflicts. However, there are many times that we need to address an issue. We want to make sure to ask ourselves several questions before pursuing the discussion. Is it really worth it? Does the problem need to be addressed? Will it affect others? Do I need to deal with it? Will this affect me in the future? Will it affect others in the future? Could it hinder my relationships that I've spent time building? And also, can my time be better spent elsewhere? This is a really big one to decide if we can indeed choose this battle or just kind of brush it off on our shoulders. I hope you guys have kind of learned some of what I've learned through this presentation, and I just want to thank you very much.